If we got a new computer, I'd just take bits out of that and put in the other one. And I guess they just sort of ignore the fact that I was taking things apart and wiring things. No, that's Sparks. Probably shouldn't do that.
Welcome to Ascend Your Story from the Ascent Media studios in the sunniest place on earth, Sunshine, in Melbourne's west on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. I'm Sam O'Reilly, the director at Ascent Media. Since we are a video and photography production company, it would have made a lot of sense to make a podcast about video production. But there are a million podcasts like that out there. This show is about science, technology, and research, the areas that we work in. So you're probably going to question why on today's episode I'm talking to a film producer. Well, this film producer is a lot more than that. He's an expert in post-production. He's the creator of the open-source macOS application Command Post, as well as a suite of Final Cut Pro tools on the Mac App Store. He's an extremely talented technologist. When he needs something that doesn't exist, he creates it. He's a director and co-founder of the multi-award-winning production studio LateNite. Chris Hocking, welcome to Ascend Your Story.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, Chris, we've known each other for 13 years now. And if I had $1 for every time someone in the Melbourne film industry had a problem and someone said, call Hocking, I'd have a lot of money. Don't you wish you monetized this early on?
I wish I did, yes. I don't have a lot of money, sadly.
But you have a lot of skills. You've worn a lot of hats across projects. Which role feels most like you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I have a specific role that I gravitate to. I think what excites me is sort of the more general problem solving and technical side of things. So I think my skill set, ironically, is being more of a generalist. Like I'm not an editor, but I edit stuff. I'm not a sound recorder, but I do sound recording every now and again. I'm not a programmer, but I can program if I need to. I think having all that skill set is what makes me unique.
I think so. What first got you interested in filmmaking and post-production?
I always loved movies. As a kid, my grandparents took us to the movies every school holiday, so we went to the actual cinema in Mornington. We used to make Star Wars films in the backyard on a VHS camera, so I was one of those kids that was just making stuff in the backyard. And I was terrible at story. Like if you watch our Star Wars films, they're terrible. But I really love the process of making it rather than the content themselves. Like some people get into it because they love telling stories. I didn't want to tell stories. I just wanted to play with cameras and lights and sound stuff. But my dad was a freight forwarder, so I used to do shipping stuff. And sort of in the later stages of primary school, he started doing concerts, like live concerts, that sort of thing. So I ended up, he used to take me along when I was still in probably grade 3 or something to like backstage at gigs. So I got to go to rock concerts and see how the roadies work and the lighting guy. And he'll be like, oh, just sit up with the lighting guy and you can watch the show and see how they do it. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I sort of got into concert lighting. And as a result of that, one day, I think I was in high school at this point, he called me up one day and said, hey, I'm doing something for a BBC kids show tour called the Tweenies, and they need like a helper. It's like Teletubbies. They had 4 animatronic life-size human people in a costume with an animatronic head. I was like, oh, I'll skip school to do that. That sounds great. So I flew up to Sydney the next day, I think, and I was literally just there to sort of help out. We had like costume characters, and my job, and they were doing like a promotional tour at shopping centres, so my job was to literally walk characters off the stage. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever because I don't know how long it was, maybe 6 weeks off school or whatever. And I think I would have been in year 8 or year 9 or something like that. Anyway, but what they didn't factor in is that they were touring animatronic characters all the way around Australia in the back of trucks, and they were just getting destroyed because Australian roads are not as nice as the UK roads. So by default, I ended up helping out the animatronics technician, just fixing things because every time we went between states, things broke. So I sort of got involved in the animatronics. And they ended up doing that for many years. I think I did the promotional tour around Australia. Then we did a big arena tour around Australia, like Rod Laver and stuff, with a packed Rod Laver. It was like an epic show. And I used to go over to the UK and they'd do their Christmas show, which again, like it was like, it's probably the biggest. I've done like a lot of live events, but it was probably like the biggest stuff. They had pyrotechnics, massive lighting, like you're at Wembley Stadium with like packed Wembley Stadium with a bunch of kids. It was crazy. So anyway, during high school for work experience, I went to a place called Bikecraft in Melbourne, which do concert lighting, which I love doing. 2 weeks there. I mean, I mostly just fix cables as you do in work experience. But yeah, so basically after high school, I'd already done a lot of stuff. I'd been working for a lot of time and I had to make a decision of what I wanted to do. And I applied for film and TV at Swinburne by default. But in the end, I decided to go with the company that did all the AV for the tweenies and went into concert lighting and did that for a number of years. Eventually got burnt out doing that. And like this is probably a couple of years later, in South Africa, called up the same person that accepted me into Swinburne 2 years ago and I rejected. I was like, please can I come to Swinburne? I need a break from all this. And then, went to Swinburne and did film TV.
Wow. Was there a moment that you realised that this could be a full-time career?
Honestly, I sort of went to Swinburne as a way to have a holiday because for the 2 years or whatever it was doing concert lighting, like I was based in Melbourne, but I basically lived in Sydney and did a lot of stuff interstate and overseas and things. So it felt like a good way just to escape without offending anyone. And the intention was always to do like 1 year at Swinburne and then go back to concert lighting and like have a year of being a uni student and then go back and to a real job. But I sort of got trapped in Swinburne and I loved it. And I didn't know, like I knew a lot of stuff about wires and cables and power and stuff like that, but I knew nothing about filmmaking. I'd never been on a film set before. Like I'd done a lot of live events. I'd been in TV studios and that sort of thing, but I'd never been on a film set. And it's a very different world. So I didn't intend to stay at Swinburne and I ended up staying for the full 3 years. And in our second year, that's where I met my business partner, Nick, and we set up LateNite as our second year 16mm uni film. The great thing about Swinburne is you get to shoot on actual film, which is crazy. And after I finished uni, I was basically just going to go back to concert lighting. One of my lecturers went, Chris, just go over. I've got some friends that run a post house doing editing. They need some technical help. They just need someone to come in and help them out with stuff. I know you know nothing about the software they were using. They were cutting in Avid. Just go in there, hang out with them, and I'm sure you can help them. And I went there and I got stuck there for many years.
So when did you start LateNite?
So second year uni. That was sort of when, we called it LateNite because Nick and I and the other people that we were doing our second uni film, we'd stay there late at night. And Swinburne, I think there was like cut-off time. I think it was like 10 p.m. You couldn't stay past 10 p.m. at the old Prahran campuses, but we used to like hide and security guard come with the torch and no one there and then leave. And so we'd come up and go back to work because we were nerds. But yeah, that's why we called it LateNite because we were always at Swinburne Prahran campus until the morning, just editing or recording things. So yeah, it became our second year uni production company and it just sort of stuck for however many 20 years now or whatever it's been.
Look, it's an appropriate name and it still works.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
I had to rebrand because my old business name was a little bit too inappropriate. I think LateNite. I think people get it.
Yeah, and it's also spelt wrong. It's LateNite, so that makes sending emails and stuff a bit harder. But we do, yeah. But yeah, it's sort of. I think it's stuck, and there's definitely been times over the years, especially when collaborating with other people, we've sort of had discussions about changing the name, but it's sort of too hard now.
Yeah. What have been your most favourite projects to work on?
Oh, we've done lots of weird and wonderful things over the years. I think our first major project, The Wizards of Oz, which was Screen Australia funded, we only had a $333,000 budget to make 6 webisodes.
Did they share $1 million 3 ways or something? Or how did they come up with that number?
I don't even know if that was the original number. I think that's what we ended up with, the total money from Screen Australia. I think it originally started a lot smaller and we kept on going back for more. But yeah, that was a crazy ambitious project, which you were also involved in at some point.
I don't think I was involved with that one.
Oh, I'm sure you were at some point. I think, I can't remember. We've done so many things over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wizards was crazy because it was just so ambitious. It was our first big thing we were doing. It was just a crazy roller coaster of a ride to make it. Like, it was so challenging to make it because it was such an ambitious script. But yeah, we somehow pulled it off. But then we've done music videos underwater, which you were definitely a part of.
That was my inspiration for getting into underwater filmmaking. And years later, and that's such a massive passion of mine that it was all because of that one shoot.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort of link LateNite to Samurai in terms of, like, I think the company we basically, so going back before that, we did Rocket Man, which was a little short film. It was our first short film where we put actual serious money into it. Like, Nick and I went, all right, we're going to do a Tropfest film. We're going to put actual budget into it. And I can't remember how much budget it was. It wasn't that much money in retrospect, but we put a lot of money into it and we built like a real big rocket that we took to a pyrotechnics company and physically lifted up with pyro and film plates. And you were on that. And the same company that we got to physically lift this rocket, which was so heavy. Like, we built it out of metal. It's still at my parents' house up in the Dandenongs.
It's still around.
It's still around. It will never die or never be moved. But
do your kids play in it?
It's too dangerous. No. I think the frame was actually, we bought it from Knox, the Knox tip. But it was basically like one of those giant Christmas trees you see on council roundabouts. So it's like, it was weighed I think it weighed more than a ton. It was like a 2-ton rocket because we put panels on that sort of thing. So when we took it to the riggers, they're like, Chris, you realize this is really heavy? We're like, yeah. Like, you want us to lift it? Yeah, that's what you guys do. So they did. But anyway, the same company, Showtech, Tiny, and the team, they lifted our rocket, but then we came back to them years later, like, so hypothetically, if we were to build an entire bar underwater, could you do that? And they're like, of course, Chris, we'll make that happen. And yeah, so we built an entire bar underwater, which you filmed a lot of the behind the scenes for.
You wouldn't say it was just a bar. It was walls, it was windows, curtains,
lights. We had like underwater lights.
Yeah, had a ceiling.
Yeah.
Even had the beer taps on the bar. It was a very impressive set.
Yeah, crazy ambitious. But yeah, we just were at, I think it was East Bentley outdoor dive pool. Yeah, it was only 2 days, but yeah, we had to, and we had no idea about, like, we made a lot of mistakes. Like, we made the set out of wood. Wood obviously floats. So our riggers were like, what are you doing, Chris? They had to bring in so many weights just to sink it to the bottom of the pool.
I remember arriving on set and it was just floating on the surface. I'm like, that's a problem.
Yeah. Luckily, we had Tiny and his genius guys that just didn't beat me up and just solved the problem. But yes, there were a lot of problems that we didn't consider, but we had a lot of good things. Like, we had a underwater speaker so we could communicate with the actors down under the water, and we had GoPro reference cameras and that sort of thing, so the director could actually communicate things. So
I remember seeing you there tinkering with the GoPro to get a signal out of it to the surface.
Yeah, we had to, because the GoPro housing, there was no official GoPro housing that had like a cable output, so we had to build a housing for it, but it wasn't perfectly watertight, so we had to fill it with tampons so we wouldn't destroy the GoPro. So yeah, it was a bit of a shambles, but yeah, it all worked in the end.
Love it. So I would say you've been a bit of a guide for me in my career and running my business, but who's been a guide for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess, like, when I try to think of like role models, like what Nick and I have always tried to be, especially in the early days, like, we literally, LateNite has a capital N in the middle because we were copying Wingnut Films in New Zealand, which is Peter Jackson's company. So we always liked the idea of doing what Peter Jackson does, James Cameron, like really big, ambitious Hollywood people. Like the Abyss documentary is my favorite documentary of all, or not even documentary. It's like behind the scenes of how they made The Abyss. If you've never seen it,
I've seen The Abyss, but I haven't seen the.
If you have, it's the most amazing piece of like I'm such a big fan. I'm not a Lord of the Rings or Hobbit fan. Like, I don't actually enjoy the movies, but the behind the scenes of those things are my favorite things. And the stuff that James Cameron did with The Abyss, if you have to go see that documentary, like it's on the special features DVD. It's the greatest thing of all time because he literally got like a nuclear tower, like a Simpsons style nuclear thing, and they just filled it with water and that was their thing. But like James Cameron got the bends because he tried to get out of the tank too quickly, and like they covered the top of the water with black dots so that no light would get through, and like it was just all crazy. But yeah, I mean George Lucas as well, all the stuff with ILM. Like I love, if you've never read the book Droid Maker, it's my favorite book. It's basically about all the companies that George Lucas set up building Star Wars, but like they created Photoshop and like Avid and everything. So yeah, I think the inspiration for us has always been those sort of big, ambitious filmmakers that not only make great films, but they innovate and do things differently. Like Titanic's one of my favorite films in terms of how James Cameron made it, because he literally like built a almost life-size Titanic just to get it. So it's all that kind of stuff that like really inspires us and is what we aim to do.
How do you see the intersection of filmmaking and technology evolving in the next few years?
In the next few years, I mean, technology has always been a big part of
We
everything.
do have a strict rule that we don't talk about AI here.
Okay. Oh, I use the term ML, machine learning anyway.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't think there's a possibility of talking about filmmaking without talking about machine learning, sadly. But yeah, I think like technology has always played a massive part. We've always been a company that doesn't do things the way it's always been. We try to always do things that is more efficient, faster. We cut on Apple's Final Cut Pro, which is not the industry standard, because it is funner. And we generally try to give our artists tools that are fun to work with, not necessarily because it is the way that it's always been done. And like I hate working in Avid Media Composer, even though that is what Hollywood uses, because it is not fun to work in. But in the next few years, sadly, like already machine learning and AI have had massive ramifications. They're only going to become more impactful over the next few decades. Not just generative AI, but just everything. Like I use AI, I use ChatGPT every day for everything. So yeah, the industry is definitely going through and continues to go through a rapid change with all that technology shift.
If we all keep typing into ChatGPT, how can we go back? How can we go back? Maybe it'll come up with a way that we can just go back and ignore it all.
I think the ship has already sailed. I don't think there's any way to turn it back. I think we need to, as a society, it's sort of like climate change. Like it's the same crisis that we currently have with climate change. Like everyone acknowledges that climate change is a big issue. It's just that very few people are practically doing anything to fix it. I think everyone acknowledges that machine learning and AI is a massive, big, global issue. It's just we're sort of ignoring it for now and just going, like climate change, we'll fix it. It'll solve itself. It'll work itself out. Someone will fix the ozone layer and humanity. But yeah, it's a complicated issue.
It is, and one probably a little bit too deep for this.
Oh, we can go there if you want to.
We're talking practical technology here. What does a typical day look like for you?
That's a great question. I mean, since we have an office in Collingwood, but ironically, after COVID, I set up a home office. So a lot of the time I'll just work from home because I live like an hour away from the office and traffic is terrible in a post-COVID world. But yeah, I jump between a lot of different projects. I do a lot of late night sort of business, admin, accounting, legal stuff. So a lot of my time, Monday is pay run day. And depending on what we've got on at any one time, I might have 5 people to pay or I might have 100 people to pay. So Monday's generally admin, accounting, business day. If we've got live action projects on, I'll generally be on set for that and doing pre for that as well. A lot of the time I'm doing, if we don't have those projects on, I'm doing post-production, so editing a lot of the corporate advertising work we do, or creative projects, or coding. We make apps. So yeah, there's never a day. I don't think I've ever had a normal week in my whole entire life. So I can never predict what we're doing. This week, for example, we're doing a lot of 2D animations. Our Kevin, our post-production genius, has been overseas. He went over to Bali for the Unreal Engine Festival conference. So I've sort of had to jump into Harmony, which is our 2D animated software, to help with that sort of thing. So every week is different.
Yeah. Are you more of a night owl now that you're an adult, or an early riser?
I have always, being in the industry that I'm in, I've always not had a lot of sleep. And like when I was doing concert lighting, I would just sleep when I need to. I could sleep anywhere. Like I got trained myself to sleep on planes. Like as soon as I was on a plane, I just fall straight asleep. Then I had kids and that all broke. I feel like I developed, what's the right way to describe it? Emotions. And I became a lot more emotional, a lot more aware of feelings and everything as you do being a father. And now sleep is a lot. I need to sleep because I'm getting older, and I've got to, like every day at 6 o'clock, I got to get up and get the kids ready for school and that sort of thing. So I try not to stay up past, I mean, my watch says I need to go to bed at 10 p.m. and I try to do that. But there have if I look at the last 2 weeks, there have definitely been days where I've only had 4 hours sleep because I have no self-control.
I wish it was more socially acceptable to have naps during the week.
Yes. I
struggle to get through a weekend day without a little arvo nap on the couch.
Yeah, the trouble, I would love to just sleep, and I could actually do it. If I just slept on the couch, I would go to sleep because I'm so exhausted all the time. But I've got so many things on my to-do list, both as a business owner and a family dad. Like there's just so many things to do. I just would feel so guilty snapping in the middle of the day when there's so much stuff to actually do.
Our son still has a midday nap. So yeah, when they say nap when they nap, I actually do these days.
When my girls are in kinder and primary school now. So, but yeah, when they were babies, especially because my youngest was born in 2020, and especially like those early days with young kids, I definitely slept and I was generally doing a lot of the nighttime duties because my wife's not good at not getting sleep, whereas I am trained to not sleep. So I did a lot of the midnight feeds and that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely was on baby time, whenever they slept, I would happily sleep. But yeah, sadly that world is now gone.
Yeah. Now let's talk work again. When you start a new project, what's the first thing you focus on?
I guess the thing that Late Night always cares about most is story. And that is definitely not my department. Like Nick, my business partner, and the rest of the team, they're all about story, making sure the story works. And all the creative side, making side, whatever we're doing has a purpose and is ticking all the right boxes emotionally and that sort of thing. So I think story is the most important thing, and then we work backwards from that. Then I come in and then we work out how to make it happen.
Yeah. What makes a film great in your eyes?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess a lot of filmmakers sometimes go to the movies and it's hard for them to distance themselves. Like they start looking at the filmmaking and the process and that sort of thing, whereas my brain doesn't really work like that. Like I just like when I go to the movies, I don't look at how it's been made. I just go along for the ride. So like I generally don't think about how it's made when I'm watching a film. So I can go to a cinema and just watch anything and have a good time.
That's a great skill to have as a filmmaker, because yeah, you can get sucked in and you want that red or blue pill.
Yeah.
So red or blue in Matrix?
Yeah, remember.
I want to take the one that makes me forget,
Yeah. Yeah, so I
and be able
generally
to focus on the story and be engrossed.
Yeah, I generally go along for the rides. I'm not very critical of movies. Like there's a lot of, like I'm so excited to go see the new Jurassic Park film. And I know like all my filmmaker nerd friends will go in and hate on it because it won't have a good story. It'll be too silly or over the top. I say, I'll just have the greatest time because it's dinosaurs on a big screen.
We need to make a date. Let's go see that together.
Okay.
Because I'm excited.
Yeah.
How do you deal with creative blocks or tech frustration?
I think, and this is something I'm only just getting good at, I think it's really just walking away and actually like going for a walk with my dog if I'm stuck on something rather than trying to brute force my way through it, which has always been the way I've always done things. I think just stepping away and having time to actually think about things. And I think having a good amount of sleep is really important as well. Like most of my genius ideas come in the shower in the morning. So if you don't get good sleep, your brain doesn't have time to compute all the things that it needs to solve those problems. So I think stepping away and looking after yourself is actually really important, which is something I'm terrible at, but I'm gradually getting better at as I get older.
So tell me about Command Post. What does it do?
So Command Post is a free piece of software that allows you to speed up your video editing. So if you're a video editor, we primarily focus on Apple's Final Cut Pro, which is editing software. And we basically just solve things to make an editor's life easier so they can go home earlier. So for example, one of the big features we had originally is that Final Cut Pro didn't have a scrolling timeline. So we built a scrolling timeline. Final Cut Pro didn't have an ability to do a batch export of every clip on your timeline, so we built that. Final Cut Pro doesn't natively work with any external control surfaces or buttons. So like one of the main reasons people use Command Post is for connecting buttons to their computer and using them to do things. So we have a lot of like Pro Tools editors that use old Razer keypads, which are gaming keypads, for controlling their Pro Tools sound software. We have scientists that use it for triggering things out in the field. Like they just want buttons that trigger maybe like a underwater camera or something like that. So it's basically like a toolbox of a billion different things. But the way it's sort of been built is it's really quick and easy for me to make things. So if someone asks me for something, I can quickly code something up and it'll work. But yeah, it's very powerful and flexible, but it can do a billion things.
So it's much quicker to ask you to fix something rather than ask Final Cut to fix a bug.
Yeah, Apple works at its own pace. They still haven't fixed Siri.
So you're a family man. You're post-production whiz. You record sound. You run a business. You've got all these hats. But then you're also in coding and you're creating software. What motivated you to create Command Post, and how has it evolved since its inception?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been a nerd, obviously. Growing up, I can't even remember. I think, so my dad was a freight forwarder. As part of that job, he worked for a big German company and they were obviously quite into technology. So when like computers came out, like desktop computers, 286s, 386s, 486s, he would get them, but they wouldn't actually, I don't know if they even knew how to really use them, but it was sort of like the business wanted you to have a laptop because that's the latest and greatest thing, that sort of thing. So even from an early age, I was very privileged and lucky to have access to old, I think the first computer was a 286 IBM laptop or something like that. And I think it had Windows 3 and DOS. So I learned how to use DOS at a really young age. And I loved that kind of stuff. I think like the first thing I ever built was like a HAL 2000 thing on DOS so that you could talk to it and it would talk back. So I've always been a nerd and loved making computers do things that it shouldn't be able to do or didn't do out of the box. And then in terms of Command Post, so like I grew up on Windows computers and taking them apart and fixing them. And like, I don't even know why or how my parents let me do that, but I guess if we got a new computer, I'd just take bits out of that and put in the other one. And I guess they just sort of ignore the fact that I was taking things apart and wiring things. No, that's sparks. Probably shouldn't do that. And then when I started working at the butchery doing post-production, that's when I got into the Mac world and filmmaking stuff. And I didn't own a Mac until I think I got my sister's old laptop like a couple of years into being at the butchery. So I was mostly Windows for most of my early life. And then when I got into Mac, I got into editing and Final Cut and that sort of thing. I got into the Mac world. And Command Post sort of started because I'm on a lot of nerd Facebook groups, and someone asked, Scott Simmons, who's an American editor, asked, in Final Cut Pro, it gets really confusing when you've got hundreds of clips on your screen and you lose where the browser playhead is. And I was like, oh, surely this is something you can fix. And so I tried to work it out and added something that just draws a red circle around the playhead. And he's like, this is amazing. Here's a list of 20 other things I'd like you to fix. And I was like, all right, let's go. And I started just fixing problems. And then other people found out about it. And I think there's like 486 things on my to-do list now of things that people want in Command Post. And I just kept on adding stuff, and it was free and open source. And at some point, probably a couple of years into it, a filmmaker in Queensland called David Peterson, who his claim to fame is he got to edit some episodes of Bluey. But he contacted me and he rejects this idea, but this is my story. He's like, your code's rubbish. This is how you can fix it. And he just started helping me. So Command Post sort of became, and I think he came up with the name of Command Post. It was originally called fcp.cafe hacks. And so he started collaborating with me, and we just kept on adding stuff. And now it's got to the point where it's grown so big that I don't even know half the things it does. Like, there's people, like, if someone asks me a question, I'm like, I don't actually know. Ask this person because I know this person has used it at some point. Like, it's basically like it's mostly for Final Cut Pro users, but there are a bunch of like very experienced Pro Tools users that use it for a Razer keypad. And they'll occasionally call me up on the phone. Hey, Chris, I'm doing this thing. Like, what? You're doing? And like people at Pixar have used it. People at Apple use it. People at Adobe use it. It's used by lots of crazy people for all kinds of scientists use it for things. Like someone at the Large Hadron Collider was using it for something. I was like, what? This is the coolest thing ever. So yeah, it's sort of grown a bit out of control. And it's always been free and open source. And I'm currently in the process of working out how I can actually charge for it, for the only fact that I would like to spend more time on it, because I haven't updated it for a little while because it doesn't earn any money and it's a lot of work. But I'm going to start selling it so that I can hopefully spend more time on it, because it is my passion project.
So how do you balance developing new features with maintaining existing ones in Command Post?
It's really hard. It sort of has grown out of control. It does so much stuff that I don't even know. And also because of the way it works with Final Cut Pro, it's all very sort of hacky in terms of like we have to use every trick in the book because there's no official API for Final Cut Pro. So we do a lot of tricks to make things work. So it's every time Apple comes out with an update, we don't get access to any of the betas or anything. So we just have to, as soon as a new update comes in, we're like, all right, we better fix it. And sometimes that's easy. Sometimes that's difficult. But I guess I kind of Command Post, because I haven't charged for it. And it's always just been a fun hobby side project. I've just done the stuff that interests me. So a lot of the stuff I add might not be like the top requested feature or the best thing. It's just something that excites me. Like I'll get a new button and I'm like, ooh, I want to make this work. And so yeah, I literally have like at the back of my office, I have probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 control surfaces that I want to add to Command Post for the pure reason of I think it would be cool, not because it makes any business sense or anyone actually wants it. But yeah.
What are the most requested features from the Command Post user?
Ooh, that's a great question. I guess most of it is adding support for control surfaces. And it's normally, so for example, with the Razer keypads, this is something I didn't even know existed. They're basically like something you'd have on your, I guess, your left or your right hand, but it's more for gamers so that they can use their mouse in one hand and then press buttons in the other. So it's like got, I don't know, 12 buttons that just are numbered. And that Razer dropped support for Mac a few years ago because most gamers are on Windows and it was too much pain. So our software allows you to use those old gaming things on a Mac, which apparently a lot of Pro Tools users use. So a lot of the feature requests are people using old buttons, or they might have like old MIDI keyboards that they want to use to control their editing software. So the main thing Command Post is known for is bringing old hardware back to life, essentially.
You've also created fcp.cafe, so I assume that's Final Cut Pro Cafe.
It is.
Tell me about that.
So stepping back a bit, so about 2.5 years ago, so I'd done Command Post for years and it was just always a fun side project. About 2.5 years ago, I was editing some soul-destroying corporate work for another company, and they basically gave us like 2 terabytes of Blackmagic RAW footage. Now, Blackmagic RAW footage is awesome, and if you're using DaVinci Resolve or Premiere, you can just import it in. But Final Cut Pro has never had native Blackmagic RAW support. So my only option is to transcode that into ProRes, which means it will take a long time and I'll need a lot of storage. And that's basically the only option if I was to bring to Final Cut Pro. And I didn't want to do that, so I made some software that allowed you to use Blackmagic RAW within Final Cut Pro. And everyone told me that was impossible to do because otherwise Apple would just do it. And I ignored that and just did it anyway. And we ended up selling that. I built it, it worked. I was like, oh, I might as well sell it. So I started selling that in the Mac App Store. And I think I sold it for like $80 US or something. So it's relatively expensive. But people bought it and they were really excited because there was no other way to do it. And so Nick and I got excited, like, well, we can make money off software. Who knew? And then I was like, well, I'll just do an app a month and then that will fund all our things. So I started just building apps and selling them on the Apple Mac App Store. But then I realized, then it sort of became a job. And it was sort of around the same time that corporate advertising work in a post-COVID world started to dry up a little bit. So I ended up spending a lot more time coding than I was doing the filmmaking stuff. And then I started getting really depressed because I didn't, like if I wanted to be a coder, I could just get a job at a bank and get paid a bucket load of money for making the Commonwealth Bank app better or something like that. And Pro Toolbox had quite a lot of users, so I was getting a lot of support things. So I was just running a software company by myself, which was starting to depress me. I've sort of, since then, I've come full circle and I've done so many apps and I've got that passion back again. But yeah, so basically over that time I was building these apps and then I needed a way to market them. So I was like, screw it. The main Final Cut website, fcp.co, had closed down because there was no money in it. So I was like, all right, I'll just make the Final Cut Pro website, news website. So I built that. And then I was like, oh, I might as well make a Resolve one, an Unreal one as well, and bought those domains and started all these 3 things. Eventually, I just got burnt out because I was doing too many things and closed down the Unreal Cafe and the other cafe, whatever it was, Resolve Cafe, and just concentrated on Final Cut Pro Cafe. But it's basically a news site for Final Cut Pro nerds. And that's it's sort of somewhat selfish in that I mainly use it to promote my own apps, but also to have a place where I can document. So future Chris, when he has a dumb question, I can look back and go, all right, that's how you do it. Or especially with like software stuff, because there might be times where I get stuck into filmmaking world that I forget how I do things in the software world. So FCP Cafe is basically all my knowledge about Final Cut Pro. I try to document in a public space, and it's supposed to be an open community platform, so anyone can write stuff for FCP Cafe. I don't want to control it. And it's pretty amazing that we have had a lot of editors submit news articles, write case studies. And it's the way it's set up, it's not like an easy thing to do. It's all based on GitHub, which is a coding platform, but editors have worked out how to navigate that whole thing. But yeah, the idea was always to build this free and open community where Final Cut Pro nerds could communicate and share knowledge.
What future applications are you planning to release?
So at the moment, I've got several apps that are sitting in a drawer. I've got something called Split Take, which is basically a application. So doing all these apps, I need to record a lot of tutorial videos. And one thing that none of the apps do really well is I just want a dumb Mac app that just records my webcam, my screen, and my external microphone and spits out ProRes files, and then I'll bring to Final Cut and edit myself. And there's lots of amazing screen recording apps, but none of them just give me the raw files. So I'm building split take to just for my own purposes so that I can just press record, no settings, anything, just a record button, records at the maximum quality and spits out ProRes at the end, and then I can edit it in Final Cut. I've also started, my parents very kindly, and I never thought this would happen, but they allowed me to take home all our childhood Lego. And one of those childhood Lego things is a Lego Cybermaster, which was like an old, I don't know, I think maybe 96 it came out or something like that, but it basically allowed you to control Lego from your computer. And the software's, I don't know, very old now and doesn't work with anything. So I want to reverse engineer that so I can control the Lego from my Mac computer.
I assume you mean Lego Technics.
Yeah, Lego Technics, yeah.
Not just, your little blocks just moving around.
I mean, it is, it's still all actual Lego little blocks. But basically the Cybermaster C2, I think it was, is basically like you build a robot, but then you could also build a truck version of it. And it basically has 2 independent motors, which are essentially the wheels. Then it's got one other Technic connector where you can put a motor or a light or whatever. So it's got one output, and then it's got 3 yellow connectors, which are inputs, which you have buttons for. So like the robot, I think if you touch its hand, you can make it do one thing, or if you touch the other thing. But yeah, I just need to work out how to get it works. And the most annoying part is that I lost the cable, or the cable has been lost to time. And so I have no idea how. It's like a RS-232 cable, and I have no idea how it was wired. So I'm trying to like work out how to make this cable work whilst writing the software to make it communicate with no knowledge of how it all worked. So
if you get stuck, I've got a guy you can call, Hocking. Oh, hang on. You're that guy.
I will work it out eventually. But yeah, they're my current projects. And then trying to monetize Command Post.
Now, open source, you're quite passionate about it. Why is it so important to you personally?
I think I'm a bit of an open...
Actually, before we go into that, can you explain to us what open source is?
Yeah, so Command Post is open source. So the fundamental technology that Command Post is built on is an open source project called Hammerspoon. So basically, Hammerspoon is some automation software, and I basically what you call forking it. So I basically took that code, said, this is great, I love it, I'm going to take it and use it for my own thing. And that's the benefit of open source, is that I can take someone else's hard work and expand upon it. And open source is basically a philosophy of making things free and open so that you share technology and ideas and that sort of thing. And I've always been someone who, like, I love a blog. I love writing stuff and sharing my knowledge. And like most of the stuff I've built is either open source or it's publicly on a blog. And like for years we had a LateNite Films blog, and when we redid our website we got rid of that, but I've brought all that, and you may have even written stuff on it because we had guest bloggers for a number of years, but we brought all that over to fcp.cafe in a rant section. So I love just sharing knowledge, and open source is sort of the same thing. It's like I love sharing code and helping others, because a lot of people are very protective of their code because they feel like it's their intellectual property, whereas I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather just give it to you. And like if someone comes up with a tool that's similar, that's cool, and then we can learn. So yeah, it's all about sharing and collaborating, and I'm very much all for just being very open, and you can ask me anything and I will share that knowledge rather than trying to keep it internal, because there's
You were talking before about trying to monetize some software that you're making. How are you balancing that between the open source and the...
So there are some of the paid apps are not open source, and that's less about keeping the code to myself, but more about I don't know if there's any advantage. Like there's very few people that actually help with Command Post. Like even though it's open source and anyone can add stuff to it, very few people do. And a lot of the broad toolbox is closed source. not because I have anything I want to hide or anything. If someone asks me for the code, I probably just give it to them. It's more just the overhead of me having to open source it, make sure I haven't written any comments that are offensive, or if there's any proprietary stuff that I'm not allowed to share. So it's more just the logistics and the maintenance of making it open source. But I've got paid apps on the Mac App Store that are open source. Command Post, when I start selling for it, it'll still be open source. So, for example, with Gyraflow Toolbox, that's all based on Gyraflow's a free open source application for doing gyroscope stabilization for your footage. So that's made by a very smart genius somewhere in the other side of the world. And I basically took his technology and allowed you to use his Gyraflow technology in Final Cut Pro. So that's all free and open source. Anyone can download the code from GitHub. They could build it themselves, or if they're not a nerd, they can buy it on the Mac App Store. I think it's like $5 or $10 US. So yeah, that's sort of the best of both worlds, that if you are a nerd and you know how to compile the thing yourself, you can just do it yourself and not pay anything. Or if you just want to use the software and don't care, you can pay me $10 and yeah.
How do you see open source shaping the future of creative tools?
Well, I think we're sort of seeing that, especially in sort of a machine learning AI world, is that like a lot of companies now are using open source technology and sharing their knowledge. A great example is OpenAI. We all know about ChatGPT and that sort of thing, but Whisper is a technology that OpenAI does for audio, voice to speech, voice to text. And Whisper's basically, once that came onto the scene, there were lots of software for audio transcription that were paid. And then Whisper came in and basically gave the world free tools for converting voice to thing. And now every software just uses Whisper. I don't know if any developers know how it actually works, but they use it. And like, it's amazing. A great example is when we first started using Whisper for something, there was some corporate video we did where we needed to do subtitles, and no one in the office could understand what this person said. It was like a sports video, and they're like, and then we do, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, I don't know what's like. It's in the video. It's been approved by the client. We just need to write the caption. Mm-hmm. None of us could work it out. And I was like, all right, we'll just try put it into Whisper. We'll see if Whisper work it out. Whisper did work it out. And we all read it, and all our brains suddenly went, oh, it's obviously that. And then you couldn't unhear what it actually said. But yeah, the machine was literally smarter. We had 5 people in the office that day. None of us had any idea what the person said. But as soon as the machine told us that it's actually whatever, I like hot dogs or whatever it was, so our brains went, of course. And now we can hear, I love hot dogs. But yeah, that's just open source technology that anyone can use. And I use that in I collaborate with some guys in Sweden on some software called Jumper, which is machine learning, image and speech search, and that uses Whisper under the hood. But there's now other technologies. Every week there's some kind of new technology that's generally open source, that there's now a better version of Whisper by another company that we'll eventually switch over to. So that's the benefit of open source, is that as new technology comes out, the world can sort of jump on that bandwagon.
So we do a lot of live streaming for clients through Ascent Media, and we use OBS, which is also open source. And for our captioning, we use a bit of software called Local Vocal, which I believe uses the Whisper plugin as well.
Yeah, pretty much once Whisper came out, even like Avid now uses Whisper. They had, I think it's Nexidia was used in most of the NLEs. And then once Whisper came out, they were like, we'll just use the free version, like free thing, because it does a better job. So yeah, most stuff is powered by Whisper now.
So recently you had a problem for a client, and like Vanilla Ice says, yo, I'll solve it. And you had a vision switcher, and you wanted to log the switches so you could use that raw footage. Tell me about the process that you went through.
Yeah, so I was up in Western Australia a couple of weeks ago as a third-party contractor, essentially, for a Sydney production company, good friends I used to work with in concert lighting. And we were doing Triple J One Night Stand, and we were using a Blackmagic Constellation 8K vision switcher. And one of the guys said, hey, it'd be really great if we could just like log every time we change a camera angle, we want to log that in our video editing software. Now, ironically, on the cheap, the mixer that you're using today to record this, it will, at the end of the recording, you can export out a DaVinci Resolve project, and it has all those edits built in, and hopefully that makes cutting around all my mistakes a lot easier. But on a much more expensive Blackmagic box, so you've got the little itty bitty minis, which is what you're using today, but on the big rack mount, I don't know, $20,000 boxes, you can't just export a Blackmagic project at the end of it for whatever weird reason. So as I do, I was like, oh, surely that's an easy problem to solve. So as we were live doing Triple J One Night Stand, I started coding stuff. And in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have been doing this, but I was testing it live in the production environment of checking every time the camera had switched. I was logging in on my computer, and luckily it didn't break the live stream. But yeah, basically just threw together some software that every time the Vision Mixer pressed a button, it just logs in my software, and then once you finish, you can export out a Final Cut Pro XML and bring it into Resolve or Final Cut Pro to basically have all your cut points in there and export out a multicam clip. So you basically have the edit as it was mixed by the Vision Mixer, but now you can easily edit it. Yeah.
That's awesome. You're a fix-it guy.
Yeah, I just love solving problems.
Now, subscriptions, they are the devil. Do you think there's a sustainable way to build great tools without subscriptions?
That's a great question. I'm very anti-subscription. Ironically, the Jumper software that I helped with, the Swedish gang, I convinced them originally to do a perpetual lifetime license. So you buy it, you own it, you get 1 year of updates and support. And at some point, they got rid of that and went to subscription, which I hated. And now they're coming back and agreeing with me. And there's going to be the option for both, I think. But I've never wanted to charge subscription for anything. All my apps on the Mac App Store are just buy once. Obviously, that makes it tricky because there's probably a finite audience for the stuff that I make. Mm-hmm. The magic number I've been told by lots of people that work in my world is like there's basically 10,000 professional video editors that will pay decent money for an app, which is a tiny amount in the scheme of things. Like Facebook would never do anything for 10,000 users. But for me, I mean, if you're charging, I don't know, $100, 10,000 users is quite a lot of money, and I can make some money off that. So I think for me, it's never been about the money. I don't do this stuff, and that's why Command Post has always been free. And the only reason I'm going to attempt to charge for it is, one, it's a good technical problem because Command Post can never actually technically go on the Mac App Store because it does a lot of things that aren't allowed on the Mac App Store. So I have to do some creative problem solving to convince Apple to get it on the Mac App Store. So that's a good creative challenge for me to solve, and a political challenge because I've had stuff on the Mac App Store that's been rejected very dramatically and removed from the Mac App Store that I then had to work out how to navigate and get it back on the Mac App Store. So I'm more excited about the challenge of doing it rather than earning money. But also, hopefully, by charging for Command Post, it'll give me ammunition to go back to my business partner and go, all right, we're making some money off this. I can now spend more time on it because I just want to play with buttons. So I'm basically just trying to work out a way I can spend more time playing with buttons. But yeah, I'm anti-subscription. I think I'd much rather make an app. I'd much rather make more apps to generate more money and come up with new ideas than to force someone to pay a monthly or yearly thing. I'd rather, if I'm not making any money off the apps that I've currently built, I'd rather come up with something new and solve the next problem rather than forcing someone to pay more money for something that I've already built.
Has your audience responded to the one-time purchase model?
Most of them have been. In fact, I haven't had a negative response. I basically just opened it to the Command Post users saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Tell me what you think. Tell me how much you think it should be. And sort of the general consensus was around, if it's $50 US, that's something that video editors will just pay without having to like go to their boss and get permission or like stress about. Like, it's not going to kill their business. Whereas if it was $500, then they'd need to get permission, and maybe it would be out of reach. So $50 seems like $50 US seems like a good amount that people will just be happy to buy it. And it'll still be open source, but like I said, there's very few people, if anyone. I don't even know. Like, I'm struggling now because I haven't updated it for a while. Yesterday I was like, all right, I'm going to try build it again. It didn't work. Like, I couldn't make the compiler export command post, and I need to solve that at some point this week. So for like normal people, I think it will be hard for them to even build it themselves, even though it is open source and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think most people, even though it is free and open source, most people will just buy it because it's easier to do it. And especially like as a video editor, most people just want to edit. They don't care about the software or the tools. They just want the plugin that makes their life easier. And that's the crazy thing about Command Post. Command Post can do 7 million things, but then you have some Pro Tools editor that works at Lucas on the Lucas Ranch in America. They goes, hey Chris, I've got a Razor thing and I need it to work with my thing and I've been using it. It's not working. Like, this is amazing for a start. But yeah, you just need to press the enable button and it'll work. Great, thanks, see ya. And that is the most amazing thing. And also the downside of having a very publicly accessible phone number is that people will quite happily call me at any hour of the day or night.
They've heard the call, call Hocking.
Yeah, they've literally like, yeah, you call Hocking, but so does apparently everyone else, regardless of time zones. Or I'll get like FaceTime messages, and I generally never answer unknown numbers. But then when after they call a while, or they send a message going, hey, Chris, can you just pick up? I've got something urgent. Like, all right, I guess it must be urgent.
Chris's free tech support.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
24-hour tech support.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool when it's like a Pixar or an Apple or an Adobe or like stuff like that. So, yeah.
And do you say, we also do other things?
No, I'm a really bad business person. I'm very bad at marketing.
So what is on the what's coming up in the late night calendar?
So over the last couple of years, we've been doing a lot of 2D animations. So at some point, we started doing some 2D animations because we had projects that were good, and we just kept doing them. And we found people that we love working with that have great ideas. So Mike Greeny he originally was helping us with one of our original projects with a writer that co-wrote Wizards. He had an animation concept. So we're like, all right, let's try do it. So we brought on Mike Greeny to help us. He was the animation director. And he was like, well, I've actually got some ideas too. So we're like, great. So we got some Screen Australia money and he got to do some animations. And then the animator that worked on that, one of the artists that worked on that animation was like, oh, I've got some ideas too. I'm like, all right, we'll apply for the screen. So we've sort of been trying to build up all these people that have been in this industry for years, but maybe they're like animators or animation directors that have never created their own original content. So we're trying to give them the opportunity of making their own stuff because they're all insanely talented. But a lot of creative people just don't have the infrastructure or the patience to deal with funding bodies and all the politics that go with trying to put in a Screen Australia or Vic Screen application. So we sort of, LateNite is trying to give all these young, amazing artists the tools and resources and infrastructure to actually apply for funding for their own original creative projects. So yeah, we've been doing a lot of 2D animations, and now we've got a lot of projects because there's no adult 2D animations in Australia really. Like Princess Bento does a lot of stuff, but it's mostly with overseas creatives. So there's no real infrastructure in Australia we don't make a Simpsons or a Bob's Burger or anything. It's all American.
We don't make Bluey?
Well, Bluey's a tricky one because whilst Bluey is created and made by Ludo in Queensland, BBC gets most of the money. ABC doesn't. If ABC made money off Bluey, we'd have a completely different industry. But I think BBC, they make a lot of money because they own the license for all the toys and all that stuff. So whilst I'm sure Bluey makes a lot of money for the production company and the creators and that sort of thing, as a wider industry, a lot of that money goes overseas. But maybe that will change with the movie. I'm not sure what the licensing things are, but yeah.
Sending it back to the motherland.
Sending it back. But yeah, and now the BBC can do amazing things because they've got Bluey money to fund it. So yeah, one of the missed opportunities.
Yeah. So, Chris, you've told us about LateNite, fcp.cafe, B-Raw Toolbox. Where can we find all these?
So I am very, as we've discovered, very accessible on the internet. Our company website is latenitefilms.com, and you can spell it the right way or the wrong way and you'll get there. So latenitefilms.com is all our creative projects. fcp.cafe is my nerd site. So all the Final Cut Pro tools, all our software. There's like at the top of the page, there's like an Explore Late Night Tools, and that has all the software stuff I do. And from there on FCP Cafe, you can join the Command Post Discord and that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm basically very accessible on latenitefilms.com or fcp.cafe.
Try to keep it in business hours, everybody.
Yeah. Melbourne, Australian time zone, please. Please.
So, Chris, final question. Have you used your skills across the board outside of the film world? Have you helped find a solution for your parents' microwave or something like that?
That's a great question. I guess, I am the person that people call when like a password manager doesn't work, or the dishwasher code doesn't work, or you can't start the oven because the timer isn't working, that sort of thing. So I definitely help out on any technical related things, or like which internet provider you should use and that sort of thing. Obviously, as I've said, I'm a big fan of Lego, so I've been building the Lego app, which is definitely not for filmmakers, but it may end up in Command Post because it's just cool. But yeah, most of the stuff I do in the software world is more for filmmakers. But I guess that skill is like even with that ATEM exporter, that's not something that we'll use as a company. It was just a problem that someone mentioned, and I was like, I reckon I could fix that. Can you do it in a day? Sure, I could do it in a day. Having no idea, like we don't use ATEM stuff in any of our work. We don't do live streaming and that sort of thing. So whilst I know the technology and that sort of thing, I just had to make it up as I go along. And I think that's the benefit. I don't think my skill set is necessarily industry specific. It's more, and I guess maybe it's as a kid playing with Lego, it's more just having my brain works in a way that I look at a problem and then I just want to solve it. It's like I'm terrible at Rubik's cubes, but it's that sort of thing. Like if it was sitting there, it's just something I would want to solve. And I'm terrible at maths. Like I'm not a mathsy sort of person. I did physics in high school and I found it like I really wanted to do well, because at that point I wanted to get into concert lighting, and rigging and weight and stuff is really important. But I found it so hard, and it was the one subject that I actually cared about, and I worked really hard to do well in physics, but it was the hardest thing. I still have like recurring nightmares of like, oh God, I've got to do the physics exam again. Whereas all the other subjects, which like a lot of the, like I did multimedia, which I didn't really care about because I wanted to do well in physics, but multimedia was something I found really easy to do because it was movie making essentially. So that I could like sail through and do it really, really well, but that's just because I was naturally good at that sort of thing. Whereas physics I found really, really hard, but it's something I really cared about and felt like it was a really important thing to have. But I had to work really hard to do it. So I think it's just that training your brain to solve these sorts of problems. And it's not just like a natural ability. It's like with the physics thing, like I actually had to work my butt off. And I think the only reason I learnt the things and did relatively well in physics, despite being terrible, like not naturally good at it, is that I would do the most elaborate cheat sheets, because you could do cheat sheets, like you could write notes that you could bring to exams. And I think you're only allowed like one A4 piece of paper. But my A4 piece of paper was jammed with every bit of knowledge and everything from the book. I consolidated the 80-page book into one beautiful A4 piece of paper. And I think just going through the process of writing all that down, that's how I learnt it. It was literally the process of building the cheat sheet that made me learn all the things I needed to know to do decent in the physics exam. Whereas the multimedia exam, it was all on a computer. So that's just naturally I could do it with my eyes closed. But yeah.
Well, Chris Hocking, thank you very much for joining us to Ascend Your Story.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to the Ascent Media team for putting this show together. Producer Jonathan Brown, all things production Michael Nguyen, and intro sequence by Nico Scott. I'm Sam O'Reilly. Ascend Your Story is an Ascent Media production. We tell the stories of amazing people in science, tech and research, and more through video, photography, live streaming, and podcasts like this one. You can see our work and check out all the other episodes at ascentmedia.com.au.